ladies and gentlemen. It's Wednesday afternoon, 4 p.m. in Central Europe and 5 p.m. in Israel. It's Space Café Israel time. Our Space Café Israel is hosted by Meidad Pariente with his guest Alice Miller. We'll begin soon. As always, we really appreciate your participation and ongoing feedback, and we will learn and improve based on your feedback. I am Elena Vocale, event coordinator at SpaceWatch.Global. SpaceWatch.Global is a Europe-based online platform for information in and about space and new space activities in a geopolitical context. I would like to thank all our private and corporate supporters that showed their commitment to keep our independent journalism alive. We really do appreciate that. If you want to be part of the supporter team, it is just a click away from you on our website. I know many of you are already familiar with our website, our bi-weekly and daily newsletters, and the Space Café podcast. The latest one, in fact, features Marcus, our host, in conversation with Carissa Christensen of Brightech, a voice to listen, and who will also have on the panel with the Financial Times Live, but you will hear more about this later. We also have new exciting episodes of Space Café Radio. The latest episode with Andreas Lindenthal, of Head of Business Operations and Products at Airbus, this one in German language, and instead in English, with Matthias Gronowski, Chief Engineer of Orion ESM at Airbus again. Don't miss them. Our fun shop is also open for you on our website, and it's a nice way for you to become a space watcher. If you've missed any of our previous talks, we have an archive on our webpage in the event section and on YouTube, of course. And we will host our Space Café Israel live regularly. So don't miss also next episodes. With that, my job is done, and I'd like to hand over to your host today. Signor Pariente, over to you.
Grazie mille, Elena. Thank you very much, and welcome everybody. It's this time of the month, and welcome to Space Café Israel episode 8. My guest today, I'm very thrilled. It's Miss Alice Miller. Alice is a VP Space at Helios, an Israeli startup turning lab-scale technology into full-blown lunar industry. And we will discuss from Earth to the Moon and back, spin-ups and spin-offs of beyond Earth habitats, and what is the crimson line that connects all the stops in Alice's life. So welcome, Alice.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
It's my pleasure. Alice, my audience knows that I always start with the same question, and it will be the same for you. Can you share with us something personal that people don't know about you and isn't written in your LinkedIn page?
Well, usually what you don't want people to know, you don't write in your LinkedIn page. But I think one thing which is very, very dear to me in life, which is a very big part of my life, is lying under the stars. And I think that in my life, I've spent months and maybe even years just lying under the starry night and looking up. I have been very fortunate to be married to an Indian person, and we've been living in the Indian Himalayas for many years. We built a resort in the Indian Himalayas, and we spent many, many nights just lying down, gazing at the Milky Way, just looking at the beauty of this universe that we're part of.
So you're actually a stargazer.
100%.
Oh, that's
no doubt about it. Yeah, really beautiful. I think my kids know the Milky Way, as well as city people, the shopping mall next to their house. Like when Betelgeuse was losing its brightness, it happened like 4 or 5 years ago. Then my young daughter, she was about 8 years old. She said to me, "Look, Mom, something's happened to Betelgeuse." And I'm saying, "No, Shanti, it's just like the dust, the clouds, or something, And then it turns out that she actually noticed that, Betelgeuse became less bright So we really just, I love the night sky. My family has no choice but to do it with me. Yeah.
Well, that's great, and a very important lesson. Always listen to your kids; they know best. So, Alice, you were born in South Africa. You were raised in Israel, and you mentioned that you lived in India. You're an aerospace engineer, a pilot, an author, an entrepreneur, a farmer, a beekeeper, a lecturer, and many more things. What is the scarlet thread that connects all these sides of you?
I think it's just things. One is really moving with where my heart goes. And I think it's total fascination with the beauty of everything around us. You know, it's so hard for me to just ignore nature or you know, bees, for example, are magic. Bees are unbelievable animal. You know, it's like 70,000 animals working in unison, you know, like doing everything exactly right at the right time, and all with a tiny, tiny commandment by one queen over there. Nobody really understands how this whole thing even happens, you know? So I said, wow, I have to have this and see, you know, and feel what's going on in there. I spent lots of hours just sitting next to the beehive and watching the bees, how they behave, you know what I mean? And I don't find it's any different from anything else, you know, like just looking into the moon that's sitting behind me on the wall over here, or engineering, you know, engineering is extremely beautiful. I think anybody who touches engineering knows that it is, it's like putting a puzzle together, you know, but in the most efficient and beautiful way you can. And nature, it's actually imitating nature. Huh? If we could do anything as well as nature could, you know, we'd be extremely satisfied. We are all the time trying to get as good as nature does it. You know what I mean? In engineering. So that's what drew me to engineering and physics. You know, the way the stars move in the sky, just trying to understand this whole story that's called life. You know, if you really follow your heart in seeing what's going on around and trying to figure it out, you find yourself in many different places. Yeah.
I completely relate. I remember that in my third year in the physics degree, in my bachelor degree, I had two courses at the same time. One was astrophysics, and the other one was particle physics. And I was blown away from the fact that we use the same formulas. We use the same kind of description for the tiniest things and the humongous galaxies, and that's completely mind-blowing. And I'm taking what you said about bees and how they are magical, and we still don't really understand how they fly. And I want to ask you, because you started off as an aeronautics engineer in the Israeli Air Force, and today everybody's talking about aerospace. So your degree is aerospace. And my question to you is, do you think that it's about time that we should separate it and we'll have space engineering as a dedicated degree?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I loved studying aerospace engineering, and I work in space technology now. And I feel that the degree in aerospace engineering is so wide, you know. You learn materials, and you learn flow, and you learn structures, and you learn, you know, dynamics, and you learn everything that's got to do with being able to be a proper system engineer of a flying system. I see today, yesterday, last night, I had a conversation with a friend of mine who has a launch company, and your capability to understand a flight of rocket in space starts off with your capability to understand how things work on Earth. You know what I mean? I think it has to go together. Maybe there can be a bit more specialization in space, but I will, if I had to do it again, I'd do the same. I feel I have a fantastic background that gives me a very overall kind of ability to perform as well as I do in my job. You know what I mean? Like, or in any system that I need to look at, which is a space system. The aeronautical background is I couldn't do without it. Yeah.
Interesting, and a very good point. Now, let's talk about your current role. What is Helios all about, and what are your responsibilities as VP Space?
That's two questions. I'll start off with Helios. So Helios is an Israeli startup. It's been here for about 5 years. We're nearly 30 people now. I joined when we were 6 people. And Helios has developed technology to produce oxygen from regolith, from the soil of the moon. Turns out there's about 40% oxygen in the regolith, and our technology knows how to extract oxygen out of regolith. Now, the big question, of course, is like, what do you need to extract oxygen for? And the obvious answer is, for breathing. That is not the correct answer. In this case, yes, we need to breathe on the moon, but actually rockets going to the moon are propelled with liquid propellant, which is methane and oxygen or helium and oxygen. But the major part of the rocket is oxygen. And in order for people to be able to leave Earth and carry on flying towards the moon, towards Mars, towards other things, we will have to use very large quantities of oxygen. And if we are able to produce oxygen on the moon and supply them to anybody who needs this oxygen on the way, it will be a very large step for human beings to reach, other planets. So this is what Helios is doing. And I'm VP Space. When we designed my title, Jonathan Gaifman, the CEO, and Jonathan said, you don't want to be like VP Space Partnerships or Space Applications. I said, no, thank you. I want to be VP Space.
VP Space, period.
Space, period. And I love it, because it is so broad, and specifically, I'm in charge of making it possible for us to actually put a pilot plant on the moon, not a pilot plant, even a working facility on the moon in 2032. So in order to do that, there's many things we have to do today to make this happen. We have to experiment on the moon. We have to make partnerships. I'm sure anybody in the space industry knows there's nothing you can do on the moon alone. If we manage to produce oxygen out of regolith, there's nothing we can do with it unless we have somebody who liquidizes this oxygen and stores this oxygen and supplies it to a customer, unless we have somebody with a bulldozer or whatever picking up the regolith and putting it onto a conveyor belt that will feed our system. Many, many, many players in this value chain. And now we're building a consortium of many players around Europe and the US in order to achieve this goal. It's a fantastic thing that you actually can't do it on your own, because you have to have all of these collaborations with many different people from around the world. And that's one of the fantastic things in space. So I fly to the conferences around the world. I find grants and make these consortiums. We're working on contracts with a company that's going to supply us the ability to reach the moon with our demonstration payloads. I'm in charge of all of that. Yeah.
Cool. I had the pleasure to visit your facilities, and I learned something very interesting that I would like you to talk about. Can you tell us about the application Helios came up with for the steel industry, and
Yes,
why you consider it a revolution.
Yeah, well, we produce oxygen out of regolith, and then you get a byproduct, which is metals and some slag. And while we were doing our experiments here, we 100% understood that there is no way anybody is going to invest any money in Helios or in our technology, which is going to give you a return on investment in 20. And we have to find some way to fund our adventure to the moon. And what we came about, one of the genius engineers here, Yossi Gofer, and Jonathan himself, said, Matt, we're producing oxygen and getting iron as a byproduct. Maybe we can produce iron and get oxygen as a byproduct, reverse the process.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know, but about 10% of the CO2 emissions on Earth come from the steel industry. In order
10%.
to produce 10%,
wow,
maybe a bit less, 9 something, but generally 10%. If you take, to produce steel today, you take coal and you take iron ore, the carbon reduces the oxygen in the iron ore, and you get CO2 and pure iron. So for every ton of iron or steel we use, we release a lot of carbon dioxide. Helios's process releases only oxygen. And if we will be able to save 10% of CO2 emissions and fund our way in that is fantastic.
That's amazing. And I guess that countries that produce iron for everyday use, and as I mentioned, the steel industry, would love to hear about that. Did you already contact them? Do you have any kind of advancement?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we have 5 of the biggest mining are in the process of finalizing 4 pilot plants, 1 in the US, 1 in hopefully India, Japan, Germany. We're really moving along because the steel industry really appreciates the ingenuity of our technology and the amazing benefits it can bring to Earth.
It is super amazing. And this leads me to my next question. Do you think that what Helios did, focus on space tech and Earth tech simultaneously, is the way for new space companies to grow? Will you advise any new space company to try and find some kind of an Earth application or a day-to-day application to fund the space activity?
Yeah, I think it's for me, it's really comforting, to know that we're paving our way to the moon with a green steel road, you know what I mean? Yellow brick road, but green brick road. Because this whole space adventure, the only right it has to exist is if it brings back benefit, to Earth. We have to find a way to benefit our environment and our communities, back on Earth while we're running to space. And we need this for 2 reasons. One reason is there's no way you can fund an operation that's going to the moon and has to build some kind of an ecosystem there in 30 years' time. It's people do not want to. So that is one reason we need some kind of a terrestrial application to fund our way to the moon. But the other side of it is, there's no other reason for me to be here but to do good for what we're for our life on Earth, for this beautiful planet, for my family, for my friends. And we really believe that what we're doing is going to help bring a better future. to our Earth over here. And I'm talking about technologies which are not only iron. We have found that our technology can maybe even swap technologies for production of nickel and all kinds of other metals that exist in the first row of the periodic table. We've done proof of concepts for quite a few of them already, including silicon. And hopefully these technologies will bring benefit back to Earth. Yeah.
Oh, that's absolutely flabbergasting and amazing. So take us through the roadmap for Helios. What are the big milestones ahead in the next 10 years?
Well, 2025, we have a contract with iSpace. We're going to put an experiment on the lunar surface, where for the first time in the history of human beings, we are going to produce oxygen on the lunar surface. It is going to be a tiny, tiny crucible. We just want to see a drop, you know, because what happens there is very different to what happens here. No atmosphere, different gravitational force. We don't even know if the oxygen bubbles want to go up or sideways. You know what I mean? It can all behave very, very differently over there. So we have this experiment in 2025. The next step after that is designing a continuous production system, which we will take to the surface of the moon in 2028, 2029. That will be a totally different ball game. Now we're taking a few kilos to the moon. That system in 2029 will be over 100 kilos. And I don't know if everybody knows, but today, the cost of sending 1 kilo to the moon is over $1 million per kilo. So this is going to be a very big multinational project. We'll have to have governments involved in it. We'll have to have very big corporations involved in it. It's not going to happen only with Helios here in Israel. We'll need many partners for this. And hopefully at the beginning of the 30s, we will be able to put a large facility on the lunar surface, which will be able to supply enough liquid oxygen for starships to come and go. Because right now, the human landing system, the HLS, that is going to land with NASA, putting an astronaut on the moon in 2025, a woman, mind you, is going to stay there because they just do not have enough propellant to come back. So hopefully we will solve this problem somewhere in the beginning of the 30s.
I'm so happy to hear companies with a vision for 10 years forward and 15 years forward, and that's amazing. We live in a very, very special time for humanity, and it's great to be part of it. What about the iron that you'll produce or you'll manage to produce on the moon? Could it be used for 3D printing or building the factory itself?
100%. Yeah, it's a bit about an egg and a chicken. You know, you can't build a factory with the iron that you have to produce from the factory. But generally speaking, human beings are going to need many things up there on the moon. The iron, the slag that comes out, you know, the regolith is a very tough place to live on. You know, it's very electrostatic. It's got lots of problems. And NASA is planning on paving large areas where rockets will land. The slag that comes out, the bricks actually that we will produce will also be used for this. It's so hard to reach the moon. It's so expensive to reach the moon. It's obvious that anything that you produce on the moon, you will use. And actually, this is one of the great advantages of doing anything on the moon. It will be zero waste. You know, you won't see a factory like on Earth just sending up things into the atmosphere because, you know, maybe if you can do anything with those things, you will, because it's too expensive to just waste them. So hopefully even this zero waste technology will come back and help us here on Earth. Yeah.
Regarding the fact that you mentioned that collaboration is the key for the future of space industry, especially Moon and Mars. My question is, when you, in your role as VP Space, go around the world and talk about the fact that you represent a small company from a small country, what are the feedbacks from other space companies that work tirelessly to reach Moon and Mars?
Well, I can say two things about this. Number one, the technology that we've developed is a very unique technology, and it is a very complicated technology to develop. You know, you take the regolith, you heat it up to very high temperatures, molten rock you have over there. The crucible melts, the electrodes melt, you know, in a highly corrosive environment. It's a very tough technology to develop. So there are very few companies on Earth who are managing to actually crack this technology. And we have managed to do it. And I think the professional world of this area that we are in, which is called ISRU, in situ resource utilization, has recognized Helios's leadership. That's number one. So I feel great respect from anybody I talk to. I just had a conversation in a Ramon conference that we had here with one of the deputy managers of NASA. He was telling me about his problems in providing oxygen for continuous human presence on the moon in the 2030s, and that maybe our system can actually help NASA solve one of their problems. So this is on the professional side. On the other side, I feel that no matter what you do, it's a lot about your heart. You know, if you meet people with your heart, wherever you go, they cannot resist. And we've made up a consortium now, and people are just here and willing and just wanting to create human relationships and engineering relationships and business relationships. It's all part of one thing, you know. It's a lot about the heart, you know, but that's true about life. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Wherever you go with your heart, nobody can resist, and people just join.
That's so true. And it leads me to my next question. Let's talk a little bit about spiritualism and engineering. I can share with you, Alice, that my life changed after I read The Diamond Cutter, a book about this businessman, this American businessman that became the first Geshe in the world, Geshe Michael Coach. And I want to ask you, especially from your perspective, living a few years in India and talking about leading with your heart, are there complementary spiritualism and engineering? Do you see a connection between the two parts of yourself and your personal life?
Well, there's nothing that is two. There is no such thing, you know, like you cannot separate spiritualism from anything, you know. How the hell did this computer get here? You know what I mean? Like, and the moon, we're talking about the moon. Everybody talks about the moon as if it's just there. You know what I mean? It is mind-blowing. Everything is mind-blowing. You know what I mean? And even the engineering itself is mind-blowing. You know, it's just the universe had to invent these animals called human beings so that these human beings could invent a vacuum chamber. You know what I mean? Like, it's all part of it. You know what I mean? It's not, but it's quite obvious. You know, it's not separate. Nothing is separate from anything. And I feel that, you know, spiritualism is I have a spiritual teacher I've been moving through life with for many, many years. Her name is Shanti Mai. And she says that spiritualism is release, 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 release. You know, just release everything, release. That is spiritualism. And I see, you know, when you hear about Elon Musk talking about engineering and saying, you know, the first question you need to ask yourself before you solve an engineering problem is, do you even need this system? You know, maybe we can just do without the system. And I see 100% connection between everything. You know what I mean? It is all part of it. It is all part of it. I don't see any disconnect, you know, and I love it. I love engineering. I must say, I love nature. I love meditating. I love many things, and I don't see anything that has a disconnect anywhere, especially when people are involved. You know, like I have such fabulous people here at Helios, you know, each one of them, from Jonathan, the CEO and the founder of the company, and every person in this company is fantastic, fabulous, mind-blowing, and a full lesson in spiritualism continuously, you know. So I see it in engineering, I see it in people. It's part of where we are, who we are, how we live. I can't see it as two in any way.
So maybe we should expect meditation rooms in new space companies and startups as part of the daily routine.
Well, I think that in a few years' time, I don't know, maybe not very soon, we will all have meditation rooms in our houses, because we, you know, brush our teeth and we wash our body and we take care of our heart, sitting, you know, having coffee with a friend. And we take care of our, you know, temperature. We have air conditioning, we have this, we have that. What about this? You know, this also has to be taken care of. Our thoughts rule us, you know, and I really believe that meditation rooms in houses are going to be something that when we come back, because, you know, the Indians say we come back again and again and again. We are going to come back to a world with starships flying to Mars and meditation rooms in our houses. 100% the starship going to Mars is going to have a quiet space inside there, you know, to sit down and just
yeah. I really like your vision, and I must say I share it completely. And we will have a sidebar discussion about this later on. It's shout out time. Let's talk about which Israeli new space company do you think the audience should pay attention to? Except Helios, of course.
Yeah. No, we're not talking about Helios for now. Tehero Space is a fascinating company by Aaron Pratt. He's the founder of this company. It's a launching company which launches small rockets to low Earth orbit, 300 to 500 kilo payload, rapidly reusable, small rockets. I have a feeling that this company is going to be something very special. Right now, we're having quite the same difficulties in receiving support from the Israeli government for putting up our infrastructure. We're trying to put up a pilot plant here in Israel where we can demonstrate and develop our industrial scale of our technology, and finding land is tough for us, for Tehero Space. And I think Tehero is looking to Europe now, looking to the US. We are also starting to be a bit, you know, slant-eyed to other directions just because we cannot get the support we want here in Israel. But I think his company is something extremely special, very professional, with a beautiful vision.
Thanks for that. And to our audience, once the summary of this talk will be online, we'll have all the links in it, so you can check this company. You mentioned support, and you mentioned land. Do you think that the Abraham Accords with our neighbors could be utilized for some kind of a collaboration in the Emirates part of the world, utilizing the vast desert regions over there?
I really don't know. To date, we don't have any collaborations with anybody east of us. I'm talking about like very, very close to us, you know, like we have collaborations with India. But I really don't know. I don't know exactly what's going on over there. It's a new space economy, you know, like a new space economy coming up there. And I don't know much about it.
Okay. You took us to 2030. Let's move forward in time to 2050. Can you share how do you think the Israeli space industry will look like in 30 years from now?
Well, I'm sure I can't, because nobody can really predict what's going to happen so far down the line. I remember I participated once in the Air Force in a consortium when I was an officer there, thinking about you know, the future 20 years ahead. And we put down this document, and I just looked at this document like a few years back and saw that nothing that we thought of actually happened, and everything that happened we didn't even think was going to happen. But I can say that we have a serious problem in Israel of very, very low funding for anything space. So, you know, if anything happens here, it's going to have to be lots of ingenuity of commercial companies. I was just looking at the US, you know, that NASA's budget is about 0.4% of the total American budget. It goes up and down, but generally 0.4%. I was looking at the Israeli budget. The Israeli budget is $600 billion. Sorry, shekel, 600 billion shekel. 0.4% of 600 billion is 2.4 billion shekel. If we get that kind of an investment here, we will see something totally different from what we're seeing today. You know, it's very, very hard to predict what's going to happen in the future. I think the only thing we can do is do our best.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I couldn't agree less. I have a friend from the Romanian Space Agency who told me that if Israel would invest in space the same as it invests in cybersecurity, many years back, we would already have tomatoes grown on the moon because of our ingenuity and ability to conquer challenges.
Yes, very true. And especially when you're talking about lunar economy, you know, I like what Yossi Amin says from Space Pharma. He says, you know, it's like you're developing a car, and you don't think about the roads that the car has to drive on. You know what I mean? Like, you assume the government is going to supply roads. To space, we have to think about not only what we're going to do on the moon, but how to fund this $1 million a kg to reach the moon. You know what I mean? We need governments to come in and help us build roads, just like metaphorically, into space, so that we will be able to do what we need to do up there. Yeah.
So hopefully somebody from the government is listening, or from the Israeli Space Agency. Alice, I want to ask you about a very important milestone in your life. I know that's something that you talked about a lot, but I want to talk about the Supreme Court precedents from your perspective as an entrepreneur. And I would like to ask, do you think that the fact that you actually won against a very large and well-established institute contributed to the way that you act today as a space entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think, it was in 1995 when I sued the Air Force and attained the right for women to become pilots in Israel. A woman could not be pilots earlier. I was very young. I was 20 years old, or about 20 years old. And I think the biggest lesson I learned over there is to ask questions. In the end, the Supreme Court said that there is actually no reason why a woman should not be a pilot. No reason. There wasn't a reason like a mile away. And how come there were no women Israeli pilots for 30, 40, 50 years in Israel? One of the main reasons was that nobody asked why. Nobody came and said, why not? What exactly is the problem? When I asked at the beginning, they told me it's something to do with the uterus. Nobody really knew. And people just said, yeah, no women pilots. Women can't be pilots. And I get it all my life. Anything I choose in life, I get the same responses. Somehow I kind of choose different choices. You know what I mean? Like, how can you marry an Indian guy? You know what I mean? What are the kids going to be? Are they going to be Jewish? Are they going to be Hindu? Where are you going to live? That's like, how can you do it? You know what I mean? Like, why see the things that aren't possible? Why not just see what is possible? And the beauty of everything, just move along, do what you want to do. No reason to be afraid of anything. The worst thing that will happen to you is that you won't succeed. So what? So you'll try something different. Not a big deal. Just move along. Go where you want to go. And I feel the same way in engineering, in space, movement to the moon. You know what I mean? We're sitting here and talking about making oxygen on the moon. It sounds impossible. But we see why not, actually. There is oxygen over there. We have the technology. We need to do a few things to get there, but why not? So I really see this court case as not like a singular point in my life, but as a stream, a stream, just moving along with whatever is, and failing, failing is part of life, not succeeding is part of life. But if you don't try, you'll never fail. And failing is cool, you learn so much by failing, I feel. So, and you learn a lot also by winning, maybe even less than failing,
So failure is an option.
Failure is total option, and I think Elon Musk has been preaching this in and out, fail lots and fail fast. You know what I mean? So we can move along. The only way a baby learns how to walk is by failing. It has to fall, she has to fall, he has to fall in order to be able to learn how to walk. So this is what we're doing here too. And each of us, in our life. I don't think there's anybody on this planet who hasn't failed in something. But it's part of life. It is part of life. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this very inspirational answer. And with that, I will open the floor for questions from the audience. Elana, will you be so kind and read us some questions?
Of course. So Mark asks, how can we connect the on-orbit service know-how to the Earth industry and future innovations?
The on-orbit service to Earth industry and innovation. I don't know.
On-orbit service.
Yeah,
So,
I got it. I think maybe you can connect it to lengthening the life of anything on Earth. You know what I mean? Today we live in a era of use and throw. You know what I mean? What is on-orbit doing? On-orbit is extending the life of whatever we put up there. And why do we do it? Because it's hell expensive to be there. So let's make it, you know what I mean, live on. But, you know, I see my parents, who are the most ecological people that I know on Earth, who don't buy vegetables. You know, at the end of the day, they go to the vegetable shop and they take all the leftovers. And my father has a plastic bag in his pocket, and anywhere he goes, he collects things. You know what I mean? There is a planet to take care of here also. So I think taking this concept of lengthening the life of anything, just imagine, you know, like, I can't even think of it right now, but something that can extend the life of anything, of a computer. You know, you have the computer, instead of just throwing it out at the end, finding a way to keep it online instead of in orbit, online. But you know what I mean? Like, I think just taking that concept and bringing it back to Earth, but of course something I have to think about. It's just like first thing that came up right now.
Okay.
next question.
Moving on to the next question, one which I hold dear. Alice is a role model for girls and women in Israel. What tips can you give for women in space?
The same tip I give for everything. I'm a bit boring, you know. Go with your heart. Go with your heart, you know. Go wherever you go. Do what you do with your heart. Do the best you can. Smile while you're doing it. Enjoy while you're doing it. You know, if we don't enjoy what we're doing, why are we here? You know what I mean? And be kind to other people that you work with. Be professional. Work hard. Life is not easy with all this, you know, moving with your heart. There's a lot of grit we have to put into anything we do. We have to work hard, and we have to work double hard as women. That is the way it is, you know what I mean? But so what? Working hard makes you stronger, you know what I mean? And yeah, that's what I can say. Majorly, just doing it with a smile, doing it with your heart, and being extremely professional in what you do. Yeah.
And ask questions, and don't get anything as granted.
Yes, don't take anything as granted. That's very true.
Thank you. So moving on to the next one, Chris asks, how about asking why and why not, and what exactly is the problem? What are the three things you would like to change in the way space business operates for Israel, with or without international friends and partners?
I have to say that I don't know a lot about the Israeli space ecosystem. It's kind of embarrassing, but because we are working on the lunar surface, that is where we're operating or going to operate. I don't have lots of need for low Earth orbit and all kinds of other areas. We do have a business model of supplying to low Earth orbit, but not to companies in Israel. So I have very little knowledge about what goes on here. I find it very hard to answer that question. Let's go to the next one.
Okay. And just because I forgot before, the question about women and girls was by Dana, and thank you, Dana, for that question. Sorry for not mentioning you. So we have a question from Ansarandi, I hope I pronounced the name correctly, who asked, hi, Professor, I would like to know, can we find intern opportunities in your company? I'm also in the field. He also switched from electronic and electrical engineering to astrophysics. From your knowledge, would it be beneficial combining these two fields? And hopefully, I wanted to learn about space systems and relative technologies. Could you please give me some tips and simple tips to do that?
Well, first of all, I think if it interests you, you should do it. You know what I mean? If you're interested in astrophysics and you're an electrical engineer or whatever, go for it. Yeah, I'm also studying a second degree in physics now, just because I love it for no other reason on Earth. So go for it. Internship in Helios, we have a few posts. I don't know what the situation is right now. You can write an email to the address online on our site, and you'll get answered. I think we have enough interns coming into Helios in the near future, but just try your luck, you know, send your email. My tip is to do what you feel is right. You know what I mean? Not to all the time look outwards from you and think what is the right thing for you to study, what is the going thing right now in the industry. You know what I mean? There is space for everything and anything in the space industry. So I'm sure if you're extremely interested in a certain area and you study that area, you will find somewhere proper to fit in. I wouldn't look at the industry and say, what does the industry need? And that is why I will study this, study that. I would do it the other way around. That's me. Yeah.
Thanks. So next question by Gunjan. What was your biggest challenge raising funding? Most space companies don't have revenue day one, but a strong impact. How did you help investors see that?
Well, first of all, I think the problem that we are trying to solve is it's a very large enabler. You know what I mean? Without oxygen on the lunar surface, not much will be able to properly happen in space. When I talk about space, it's cislunar space. Yeah, that is after the orbits around Earth and towards the moon and onwards towards other planets. There are two things that have to happen on Earth for this to be able to happen. One is rapidly reusable rockets, what SpaceX are doing. And the second thing is lunar propellant. So I think like our technology being an enabler really helped us raise funds. But we also had a very tough time raising funds for space. Our terrestrial application brought in much more investment than our space dream. Yeah, I think being an enabler, being a technology which will be really crucial for the space environment in the future, helped us a lot. But our terrestrial application is the main driver over here because the return on investment is so far away for the lunar industry that that is not a convincing point, you know? When you want to talk to investors about their return on investment, it's not in the lunar business. Yeah.
Thank you. So last question from the audience. From Itzhak, I hope I pronounced the name correctly. Are you looking into any other in situ resource utilization for the moon, aside from utilizing the moon regolith? What about generating oxygen from lunar water?
Well, this is a very large topic. You know, there are two different ways companies on Earth are looking at producing oxygen on the moon. One is from ice, and the second is from regolith. The ice people, if there is ice on the moon and it's easily available and we can reach it easily and extract it, excavate it easily, you know, they're saying there is ice on the moon, but it might be, you know, like hundreds of meters deep down. You have to have these vertical robots excavating ice at extremely cold temperatures. Not really sure we can reach this ice. If there is ice, that's a game changer. Ice easily available, because then you get oxygen, you get helium, and there's no need for oxygen out of regolith. But most probably there is not going to be such easily available ice on the moon, and then you will have to use the regolith to reach the oxygen. We're not looking at ice right now. we're regolith people. We're going for the regolith side of things. Maybe there'll be an economy for both in the end on the moon. You know what I mean? Like each have their disadvantages and advantages, and maybe both are possible. But we're putting our cards on regolith. Yeah.
Thank you. So as I mentioned, this was the last question from the audience. Meidad, would you like to conclude with some further comments?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much. So first of all, Alice, it was a pleasure. I think that we could continue this talk for many hours, and there are a lot of things that we just touched on the surface, and we can follow through. Follow your heart, people. That's the main thing here. I just want to mention that the next Space Café will be on March 29th, and it will be with Aryeh Halsband, the CEO and founder of Effective Space Solution that is now Astroscape. And Alice, again, thanks for the time and for your openness and willing to share with our audience. And see you soon.
Great pleasure. Thanks a lot, Meidad.
And back to you, Elena.
Thank you. Thank you both. Before we say goodbye, let me remind you of upcoming events. So on the 23rd of February at 8 p.m., you can find us at the tomorrow, you can find us at the 61st Space Bar by Astro Agency, where host Dallas Campbell and Dr. Susie Imber will welcome as guest Nick Boros with a speech about the New Zealand space ecosystem. Camille Elizabeth Bergin focusing on a non-traditional path to aerospace and orbit fab. Esther Gulaski speaking about mushroom protecting humans in deep space. Nathan shows me with a talk on building a space economy for everyone. On the 28th of February at 4 p.m., instead, join us for a Space Café 33 Minutes with Pierre Lyonnais, Research and Managing Director at ASD Aerospace, to hear more about the economist that challenges the new space narrative. On the 1st of March, do not miss our event focused on the new space economy risk versus reward by the Financial Times Live, where you can join Financial Times International Business Editor Pelling Hollinger and our publisher Torsten Krüning live on LinkedIn for a virtual discussion on the long-term financial sustainability of the space sector. And then mark your calendars for the next episodes of 33 Minutes with our bi-weekly show hosted by Torsten Krüning, our producer of today and publisher at SpaceWatch.Global, that will run on the 14th of March and the 28th of March, always at 4 p.m. And last but not the least, save the date for our Space Café Austria by Sabine Pongruber on the 16th of March, and the third episode of the series with Dr. Namrata Goswami of Space Café Black Ops by Dr. Emma Gatti on the 29th. As always, all events are going to be online on Eventbrite, so check them out there, and we would love to hear your feedback, so please check in with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Don't forget to sign up for our daily and our bi-weekly newsletters. And if you'd like to treat yourselves with something special, become a Space Watcher today or help us in the supporter program. Thank you all very much for your interest today. Toda Rabba. Thank you, Meidad, for hosting that inspiring talk. Thank you, Alice, for taking part to it. And thanks again to the entire team behind the scenes for doing that great job week by week again. Thank you to our audience for joining us. I hope to see you next week in future events. In the meantime, visit our website and follow us on social media. And don't forget, become a Space Watcher. Bye.